order. The Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting, February 12, 2020, at 6:15 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence led by Councilperson Lawson.
She skipped right over roll call.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
She didn't do roll call. Excuse
Any
me.
person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a blue public comment card located in the back of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being taken up by CRA Board of Commissioners for discussion. Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or on the item considered.
And adopt the agenda.
Could we
Madam
please?
Chair, can we have the roll call also?
Yes, just going to ask for that.
Commissioner Lawson,
here.
Commissioner Lanier. Here. Commissioner McCoy, Vice Chair Botel,
Here.
Chair Miller Anderson. Also present, Scott Evans, Executive Director, Michael Haga, General Counsel, and Mayor Ronnie Felder, and Samara Sagan, CRA Clerk.
Thank you. Do we have any additions or deletions?
No, Madam Chair?
I do. I want to pull this item that's on the end of the agenda, the one about the CRA discussion for event center space.
Okay. Do we have any objections to pulling that?
No, Madam Chair.
I don't object either. Can we pull that item, please?
We're deleting it?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Do we have any, sorry, do we have any disclosures?
No, Madam Chair.
No? Shirley?
No.
I have met on past occasions with Mr. Valari from the Valari Group. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Do we have any public comment cards on the consent agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All matters listed on under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the commissioner so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Anyone want to remove any items from the consent agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
No.
Madam Clerk?
I think we need a motion and a second for the
We had,
consent.
I thought we had one. Do we have, did someone make a motion to approve the consent agenda? I think we
Yes.
did.
So that was for the agenda, I think.
I make a motion to approve the
Okay.
consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes,
motion carries. Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, CRA Plan Update.
Good evening.
good evening.
For the record, Kim Delaney from Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. And we wanted to provide just a status update to the board on the 4 projects the Regional Planning Council is undertaking on behalf of the CRA. As the board may recall, we're in about a 12-month schedule of carrying out 4 individual projects. So I have updated information for you on each of those 4 tasks that are underway. The first one is the Singer Island Area Plan. So as the board may recall, this is an effort to reevaluate the land use expectations in the Singer Island area of the CRA. We have been underway conducting field visits and site visits, taking photos of existing conditions, and developing the base data and documentation for that effort. The economic consultants are just now beginning the market analysis that will help inform the area plan on Singer Island. The next steps for that effort will be looking at the current and the past development proposals for both the city and the CRA-owned parcels, looking to develop design concepts based on the current code requirements the city has, and then look at planning level analyses, both economic and planning scale, to understand how to better and more efficiently combine land uses in that portion of the CRA. So that's the Singer Island Area Plan. The second project is the Core Gateway Signage Project, and we are at a point where we've had a chance to go in the field and survey all the existing, what would likely be candidate buildings on Blue Heron and Broadway, both for the entire extent of the CRA limits, so including those properties along Blue Heron on Singer Island as well as on the mainland and the Broadway corridor. We have met with the local signage company that we'll be utilizing, which is Barron Signs, to get some generalized cost estimates as to what to expect when signage is redeveloped on those parcels, as well as initiating the discussions with them about gateway signage. Those concepts will all be coming back to this board for review, so we're in the coordination part of that effort. And so we will be bringing to you selection criteria and a rank ordering of select projects. I think that will be likely not at your March meeting, but at your April meeting. That work will include both typical redevelopment concepts, signage concepts for those buildings, as well as the cost estimates to get that work underway as quickly as possible.
Question, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
How do we go about choosing Barron Signs as the signage company we're using?
It was the local company that we were able to utilize that had existing knowledge about all the properties in the CRA. The Regional Planning Council's worked with them in the past. And so that was the lowest cost vendor we were able to access to quickly move on the project. They're not the vendor that would necessarily be selected to install the signs. They're just helping us on the planning side to figure out what the cost estimate should be, but that will ultimately be a board decision as to who the vendor would be to produce that signage.
And for the estimates that they're providing, are they charging us anything for that? Is that encompassed within the fee to do this?
It's a very nominal fee. I think we gave ourselves a maximum of $4,000 for their expertise in understanding both the city's permitting requirements, so we can get numbers for that, as well as materials and typicals. They also have good knowledge of the weather patterns which affect the signage, so that we want to be sure that the signage that's recommended is going to be long-standing and last, because that's an issue that we've seen in other communities, so we don't want to run into that challenge.
Yeah, I just know a lot of the small business owners are going to be very particular about the signage that's going onto the building, so I want us to make sure that we take the right steps when selecting that signage company.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So, and again, this project will be designing that signage, working with those property owners, and bring back those concepts to your board for approval. And then a separate set of actions will be selecting the company to do that installation. That's not going to be part of this effort.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. We're just trying to move quickly to get that to you, because it's a great, fast improvement in a district. So the third task is looking at water quality and enhancement around what we're referring to now as, not the Peanut Island Lagoon actually, but I think what we would refer to it now as the Palm Beach Inlet Lagoon. That's really the lagoon. The Peanut Island Lagoon, I was corrected, is really referred to as the lagoon in Peanut Island, and we're not just looking at that little small area, but the entire watershed that extends from north of Phil Foster Park, south to the southern CRA limits, and then, of course, east and west. So we've completed a staff kickoff meeting. We're reviewing the 17 projects that are in your current adopted stormwater master plan that are in the CRA boundaries. We've done field work to go out and assess conditions, and we've completed the initial outreach with the agencies and local governments. There are 7 local governments, the Port of Palm Beach, and then 9 other regulatory and partner agencies that are all involved in that project. We'll be meeting actually with your staff tomorrow to walk through the details of those 17 projects and talk through the additional ones that we've begun to identify that might be appropriate. And then we have scheduled an agency meeting with all of those agencies and local governments for the end of February. The goal of that, of course, as has been set out in the task, is to find opportunities to partner with others so we can stretch out the CRA dollars to get the largest scale improvement. And also, what we're beginning to understand is the opportunity maybe for a larger scale legislative appropriation that may come out of this effort to really leverage CRA dollars to get the best improvement for water quality that we can. So that's those are the tasks that are underway for that effort, and sure.
Unless you think it would be inappropriate, I'd like to attend that meeting.
Absolutely. So I'll be happy to send that information around to the board, although, of course, just one board member Otherwise, we have to
Right.
advertise.
And you know that we have reinstituted our policy of tagging derelict boats. Lina Busby from our legal department and the city worked on that, so she might be somebody who would be good to touch base with to understand that.
Great. Chair, could you give me that staff member's name again?
Lina Busby, Assistant City Attorney.
Great. I'll be sure to forward that meeting invitation to her as well. And we're also coordinating with Lagoon Keepers, which is one of the local nonprofits that we've worked with in other communities as well. So again, the goal is to leverage our dollars as far as we can to make the best water quality improvement and water quality conditions we can achieve in the Palm Beach Inlet Lagoon. So that's the water quality and enhancement project. Of course, those 3 tasks will feed the CRA plan update. So of course, this largest scale effort is moving a little behind the other 3 because the other 3 are going to be components of the CRA plan update. At this point, we've conducted a number of site visits. We've done a reconnaissance field tour through the CRA district to begin to understand what's been constructed, what are the projects that are pending, and what remain the obvious opportunities in the CRA for projects and programs. Pardon me. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be scheduling the stakeholder interviews, so you may hear about that as we're reaching out to the many stakeholders that will be called for interviews specifically to help inform this planning effort. We're in the process of starting to update the economic and demographic data in the plan so we can validate that and recalibrate it to 2020 conditions.
You
Chair?
might want to meet with Jean Wibby as well because she has good.
I didn't mean to jump in, I'm sorry. We've been coordinating directly with Jean with all of these projects. So, Mr. Evans has been participating in some of them as well. So we're trying to maintain this closest communication as we can and coordination. We expect the public information workshop will be scheduled later in the spring. Again, we want to have a chance to have really good progress on those first 3 efforts. There's a little workshop fatigue that happens sometimes, so we want to kind of hit those pretty hard and then delay the workshop for the CRA plan into a little bit later in the spring. And then, of course, also we are going to be identifying all of the new CRA projects that would be identified and continuing those and then prioritize them for funding cycles that will all come back to you in the large CRA plan update amendment that you'll consider in the latter part of this year.
Madam Chair. I think that you need to add as a part of this plan, this commercial node redevelopment program. That program will address the issues of commercial strip malls because we're looking at putting $3 million at the corner of Broadway and Blue Heron for the CRA building, another $1 million basically on the corner right there, but those strip malls are still blighted. So we need to be able to, if we're gonna fix that up, we need to be able to look to those 2 strip malls as well, and in terms of the strip malls around the city. So that needs to be a part of the plan that we look at these strip malls, because if we're gonna be developing the areas, we need to develop those as well.
Absolutely. So, and in fact, we were very closely understanding what the condition is of those 2 strip malls that you're referring to on Blue Heron when we were out doing the assessment for signage, and that's kind of, it's a very, it's a visually,
It's not gonna match. It's not gonna match with what you're putting there.
yes, there's a lot of information coming from those 2 strip plazas, given the variety of lettering and signage and colors and scale, just of the signage alone. So there's some opportunities to do some fairly, what we hope are modest cost improvements there. And yes, Commissioner, Councilmember, we will be looking at those 2 in addition to the other strip malls within the CRA as part of the CRA plan update.
And it needs to be a part of this plan.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely will. And so with that, it's a very brief update, but we just wanted to bring you up to speed as to where we were, make you aware that you should be hearing from folks in the community because we're going to be getting calls for interviews, and so they're part of the update process. And otherwise, I think we'll be back not in your March meeting, but at your April meeting with some actions for your consideration.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, make sure when you come back, that's a part of the plan, that you look at these strip malls and to bring some type of visual and blight for those areas just like those.
Absolutely. We certainly will. So, okay. Thank you so much.
A resolution, A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the implementation of Round 4, 2020 Commercial Property Improvement Grant Incentive Program in the Commercial Beautification Program in accordance with the approved budget, reapproving the 2017 incentive underwriting criteria attached as Exhibit A, directing and authorizing the chairman and executive director to take such actions as shall be necessary and consistent to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Is this an item being brought back, Madam Chair?
Mr. Evans, no, I don't
This
think.
a new item?
This is
I'm sorry?
This is a new item, yes?
Yeah, this is a new item, and CRA Project Manager Andre Lewis has a presentation for the board.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. So this is the commercial grant program update and also approval requests for round 4 of the commercial grant program. So a little bit of background. Back in September of 2019, we had fiscal year 2019-2020 budget was approved, and the commercial grant allocation for $250,000. So the updates. So back in October 2019, the board approved round 3 for us to go ahead and start accepting applications. January 31st of this year, was our submission deadline, and we received 4 applications and/or submissions, and they're currently being reviewed in round 3.
So this is not round 3, this is round 4?
This is round 4. Our request to open up for round 4.
Have we voted on round 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But the board hasn't selected them yet. We'll bring that, the selection of round 3 would go at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the proposed schedule for round 4, we proposed February 17th. We want to open up the application acceptance period. March 11th, we want to have our first technical assistance session. Our second technical assistance session will happen in April, and the deadline for submissions for round 4 will close April 15th. And we're proposing to submit the recommended applications to the board for approval. So the staff recommends that round 4 of the Commercial Grant Incentive Program be approved. Staff will recommend rolling over the remaining funds from round 3. The rollover fund is estimated to be right around $125,000.
And the CRA's goal in this is to always have a grant cycle open for our commercial property owners, as it is for our homeowners. The homeowner program is open on a continuous basis because the commercial program has to be competitive because we're often oversubscribed. And so our goal is to open and close rounds so that opportunity is there at all times for our commercial businesses to apply for a grant.
Questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
who was on the evaluation committee?
So the evaluation of the commercial grants, the final approval is done by this board. So round 3, we will score them according to the rules that were approved by the board for the program. And then the projects will be ranked according to that score. In this case, there's more dollars available than has been requested.
Yeah.
So the board will have the option of funding all of the projects. But the approval of the actual grants is done by this board, and that will, for round 3, and that will be at our March CRA board meeting.
No, I do know that. I'm asking, is there an evaluation committee that, once the proposals come in, they evaluate them?
They score them, the scoring is very precise, so there's no subjectivity. They get a score based on.
So there is no committee? that reviews these proposals?
The CRA staff scores them according to the board's regulations.
Could you send us a copy of that? Who's on this
I
committee?
believe it's attached
in the
tonight,
backup.
isn't it?
I didn't see that. That's what I was looking for.
I know I saw it. Here, right here. It's pretty objective.
I don't see it where.
It's, my glasses.
I don't see any names.
No, this is the blank. This is the blank.
No, this is, I'm not talking about the evaluation grid. I'm talking about the actual evaluators.
So the CRA staff fills out the grid.
So the CRA staff is the staff that evaluates these proposals.
Yes.
Nobody else. No outside people, it's just the CRA staff.
Sometimes we're assisted by economic development, Paul Skyers, who's helped us create this program originally.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. I need to know who's on the committee who's evaluating these proposals. Can you send us that
Sure, yes.
Yes,
before the decision is made?
yes.
Is Ms. Jenkins a part of this committee?
No, she's not.
She should be.
Okay, we'll circulate that list to the board via email.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, this evaluation matrix is so confusing. As we go through this, I don't want to go through it, line by line, but I want to highlight some of the things on here that kind of jumped out at me. You have listed for the impact, and it's very narrow in terms of the impact. You have the green industry, you have the retail industry, healthcare services. I'm just thinking in terms of little small mom and pop shops that I don't see could have especially when it comes to not only just this part where it says impact, but down where it says economic impact, business hires 5 employees or more. That totally gets rid of all the mom and pop shops. I mean, I thought that this program is supposed to be geared towards small businesses in the area, not only small businesses, but at least give them a chance. If you have a law firm, it's probably one attorney and one paralegal, and that's it.
We could, if you would like, we could bring back the scoring to a board
Yeah,
workshop.
this needs to be revamped because it really eliminates a lot of small businesses. It eliminates a lot of existing businesses. You just need to be.
Let's recommend to
Yeah,
Scott
to
that
be
we bring
retooled,
this
yeah.
to a workshop so we can take a look at maybe revamping this so that it more closely, meets the needs of our community, and Shirley can have some input on
Yeah,
that.
I want to really
Thanks.
be able to, at least to be workshop, because number one, I want the small businesses in this area, in this city, to be able to have a chance. But this is, you get 5 points if you got 5 people you can hire. So if the people have 5 people already, do they have to fire them to get people? It's just too.
It might help,
confusing.
Councilperson Linear, if you made some suggestions via email to Mr. Evans so that prior to whatever workshop we have, he can examine your recommendations and
Yes, certainly.
toss them over with board, with
Yeah, because I do
staff.
evaluation
Yeah,
of projects all the time, and this is just so, small businesses, the terminology in terms of the impact. Yeah, we just need to look at this again.
that'd be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
My only concern would be the number of responding bidders for these grants. I want to see an approach of how we can advertise the grant program, how we can really kind of get door to door, because I was actually one of the advocates going out and saying, hey, I want you guys to apply for this grant. I want you to try to get involved and make sure that you can obtain some of the funding that's available to revitalize our businesses. So to have only 4 responding, I want to see what approach we can take to actually get them to respond for this next cycle.
Okay.
If we can maybe do a community charrette, maybe if we can host something to say, hey, business owners, we have this free money from the city, from the CRA, come get some. Let's see what we can do to work together. How can we actually encourage people to actually apply for this?
Aside from the, rudimentary advertising, I actually go out to the businesses, especially the ones that are in our downtown corridor that we feel could use some attention or could benefit from these funds, and we reach out to them, and we've gotten some responses. Some have elected not to at that time, so.
I think that what I'm seeing is that a lot of the tenants are not building owners, so they're a little bit more hesitant to go through the convoluted package, and it's really not that in-depth if they could just read through the package. So maybe possibly a training process of how to apply for the grants, maybe giving them additional assistance to show them that, listen, go through the process, speak with your landlord, get it signed off. It's literally can take a day or two, and you can have funding to revitalize your whole business.
Yes.
Good
Thank
idea.
you, Audrey.
Are you available on Monday? I'm having a workforce development task force meeting at the Marina at 11 o'clock from 11 to 1, and a number of our businesses attend those meetings. It might be a good idea to make a presentation about this at that meeting, because then they could spread the word. I will have representatives from the 9 different industry clusters that I work with in workforce development, and it would give you one more avenue to let people know.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you. I'll add you to the agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And to piggyback off of Mr. Lawson, to invite the property owners as well. They should be involved. I mean, the money is going towards fixing up their property, so they should be involved with this process as well. And also, too, for the evaluation committee, whoever's on that committee, if it's staff, then that's one thing, but if there's people from the outside, they need to disclose their conflicts with potential businesses for this project. And also, too, we need to be able, because you're asking business owners to find a local developer, find a local contractor, a local electrician. I mean, we don't know who they are, not all of them. So I think that the CRA needs to work on putting together a pool of electricians and contractors who are in this city.
Well, we have a contractor list that we share, especially what I've seen is historically there are some applicants that already have it planned out. They have already done their due diligence as far as finding out who they'll reach out to, and there are some that come to us and they say, hey, Andre, who are the
Right.
local contractors in our neighborhood?
Yeah,
And we have a contractor list that we share
Yeah, I
with them.
agree. There has to be a pool so that people who are new to this process can be able to pick 3 of those people and say, I need to get 3 bids from those 3 people.
I agree.
So that they won't have to be burdened with trying to figure out who they need to work with.
Great. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, Andre.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, we have public comment.
Oh, thank you very much. Public comment.
Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie's here.
Bonnie Larson. Shirley Lanier, thank you for that question. Who's on the evaluation committee? We never got an answer. I want names. I want name, not just staff. Who are we talking about, and what qualifications do those people have? But who are the staff who are doing the names? All right. Now, this memorandum here on February 12th, 2020, it says here on July 24th, 2019, the board requested this item be brought back at the next meeting to allow sufficient time for the board to complete a review of the submitted applications. I remember on that round 3, I think it was, we had BB&T Bank, who left their building in total disrepair for at least 2 years. It looked like a bomb had gone off. The whole side of the building fell down. And they left it that way. And now they're asking us for money to put up a statue in the front. How much code money did we get for them for violating that? The whole side of the building was falling down. That really was a scourge on the city. I bet they didn't pay anything, and now they want us to put a statue there. I don't think that's good use of CRA money for us. They want a statue, do it yourself. That's not going to help us. That's not going to help their business, and that's their responsibility. It says here the board provide final visit for the 7 applications. Also, another one of the owners there was the guy who owns the Little Strip Shopping Center, which is next to the BB&T Bank where the CRA is, and the Hub was in there. That guy's a realtor in Palm Beach. Why is he submitting to he left it in disrepair. That whole shopping center was like a mess. This guy from Palm Beach is asking Little Riviera Beach to pay to clean up his buildings and stuff? No. All right, now it says here, the agency received 4 new applicants. One is a hair salon, the name, please. Tax preparation office, the name and address, please. Let's see, a seafood restaurant, where is that? What's the name and who is that? And a marine canvas shop. Who are the names of these companies? Why can't we know? Why can't we be transparent and let us know who are these people who are applying and where are they located? We want to know. Thank you. It's our money. Thank you.
Yes, those applications and the names and the details of the property owners and the tenants will all be provided to the board when you do your evaluation of those businesses, which is at the next CRA board meeting.
Thank you. And the names, I think you said earlier that the names of the people on the evaluation team would be provided as well to council.
Yes, in fact, we'll make that part of the workshop, and the board can decide who they'd like to evaluate
Thank you.
applications.
Yes.
Given the fact that we're probably gonna have to readjust this timeline, we're gonna go out to the community, we wanna get business and owners involved, and we're gonna have to readjust the schedule, we wanna look at the evaluation, and I suggest that we table this until our next meeting so that we can get some of this information and some of these questions answered before we move forward. I just wanna be able to make sure that, I don't wanna table it indefinitely, I don't wanna table it to the next 2 or 3 meetings. The next meeting, we can discuss this once we've gone back and readjusted this schedule and looked at these evaluation criteria, these evaluators, and those type of things.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, will it be detrimental to the process if we postpone it for another month?
No, we can bring it to the
Okay.
March meeting.
That'd be great. Thanks very much. So we won't be voting on it this evening.
We need a motion and a second to table it.
Like to make a motion to table the resolution for round 4 of the 2020 commercial property improvement grants.
Second.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel.
Yes.
Motion carries to table the item till next month. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the execution of a development agreement and agreement for sale and purchase by and between the agency and Valari Group LLC for the sale and development of the Riviera Resorts, finding that the sales price represents fair value, finding that the project eliminates slum and blight, and directing and authorizing the chairman and executive director to take such actions as shall be necessary and consistent to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is a CRA property that's located on Beach Court. It's approximately 5,000 square feet. It's a very small site. It's currently has some open space and a mulch pathway through it. In June 12th, the CRA board voted to sell the property to the Valari Group for the provision of public parking, which would be done or achieved through future redevelopment. And they directed staff to negotiate a contract to be brought back to the board for final approval. And you can see on the screen here the small CRA property, and it's directly adjacent to the site that's been put together by the Valari Group for the redevelopment of the Sands Hotel. And this action would provide this property to them for their purposes of their development following they met a series of conditions which are in the agreement. The project was a detailed presentation of it occurred at the last CRA meeting in January, and the applicant is here tonight if you have any questions for them. They must apply as a condition of this contract to the city for site plan approval and for the right-of-way acquisition that's located on the site within 2 years. And as a part of the contract, they must build 151 parking spaces. This has a cost of well over $3 million. The applicant has estimated it could cost between $5 to $6 million, and agrees to limit the amount they charge for those spaces to a rate which is not to exceed $36 per day or $3 per hour for the first 3 years. After the opening date of the garage, they could only increase that rate by 2% per year. And we also had a parking study analysis look at that rate to make sure that the maximum rate was reasonable And we found that the current rates, and of course they wouldn't have this project completed for 4 to 5 years. However, the current rates are between $2 to $3 per hour already in all of our existing neighborhood cities. So we know that this rate is, as a cap, is reasonable. The proposed resolution will provide the CRA-owned property to the Sands Hotel. This will, of course, the redevelopment of the site will provide new tax revenue to the city and will help stimulate redevelopment of the surrounding area as well. As a condition of the sale of the property, the applicant must obtain construction lien financing. They must apply for and receive building permits for construction of the building. And of course, as a part of it, the final site plan that gets approved by the city council would be attached to this agreement as the final exhibit. So this has an exhibit that's not completed and won't be completed until the city council approves the final site plan. And this project is, the applicant is here if you have any questions for them. And that concludes my summary of the sales contract.
Do we have public comment?
We do, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Shirley Graham, followed by Bonnie Larson and Aman Israel.
Shirley Graham, 1630 West 30th Street. I am very excited about this project because it's going to bring two things that I'm interested in for the city: taxes, and they're going to be bringing workforce to the local people here. So we are very excited about this project. So you guys, I can't say too much. I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Larson, followed by Aman Israel.
Bonnie Larson, I don't even know why we're talking about this. This project, it's talking here like it's a done deal. This is what we're going to do. One day he says 20 stories, the next day he says, let's make it 30. No, none of this project information has gone through any of the channels of Riviera Beach. Planning and zoning, no. Permitting, no. Zoning is all going to have to change. A couple years ago, the citizens of Riviera Beach, especially Singer Island, said no to anything above 5 stories right there by the Ocean Mall. They were very adamant about that. All of a sudden, here we get this proposal. No, this was backdoored in. This came to you last meeting as a resolution. Mr. Evans had asked Mr. Haygood to put it on the agenda. So it was on the agenda as a resolution. What happened to all the stuff you're supposed to do before you get to the... This was never approved. This whole project was never approved. Hasn't gone through any of the channels here. So I don't even know why we're talking about this. Now, does this include the beach court? This is the beach court property, right? Okay. All right. So many mistakes in all this backup. It's unbelievable. The problem is we don't have an executive director of the CRA. Mr. Scott Evans is doing the best he can. He's not the executive director. He's the assistant. He suggests, he reviews, and he approves. That's not the way you run a business. That's not the way. No. That property was, all right, it was sold to us. We had to buy those two properties, those two beach court properties, for parking. All right? It's not going to happen. We're going to give it to somebody who's got a pie-in-the-sky idea. We sell it to him now. We give it to him now. Our hands are tied. That's our parking. That was sold to us as parking for the public beach. We need to keep it that way. Let's see what happens with this when it goes through the channels of Riviera Beach. This is not a done deal. It should never be before the council. For those two parcels, we paid for one, we paid $573,000. For the other, we spent $250,000. Okay? Now, all right, now I got to hurry up. I can't tell you all this stuff. This is way too much. We spent $823,000. We pulled down the buildings. We had all that cost with it. And you know what? You're being asked to sell it to Volare for $500. That's the real kicker. $500. Read it. Too many mistakes and not through the proper channels. We can't backdoor stuff like this. We can't. This is not a done deal. It's not even on the agenda here. It should never have been on the agenda. So he wants to do the entire block. 2 years ago, he was talking about doing a whole parking garage there. That's all it was. Now he's changed it. Now he's got a 20-story building. Next day we changed it to a 30-story building. in an area with one-story homes. Can you imagine that right next to you? No, this needs to go through the proper channel, zoning, everything. It's got a million problems with it. Thank you.
Aman Israel.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Council, Scott, Mayor Felder. If this project could be happen in 2 years as opposed to 4 or 5 or 6 years, would the council be willing to do that? There was no reason it should take 4 to 5 years to do this. I know you definitely don't want to ask anybody to carry a loan of this magnitude for 4 or 5 years without any work being done. Maybe the question should be asked of them, can they do this in 2 years? That's what they're asking for. I think it's wonderful in time for our city to set some high standards. This building will be a premier building in Riviera Beach, Florida. I actually went to West Palm just to make sure, and based on what I've seen, it's a premier building. It'll set a standard high for other developers to come to Riviera Beach. I really love the idea of it being Riviera Beach Resort. So I think it's a wonderful statement to Palm Beach County that Riviera Beach is now moving forward in a big way. Lake Park has a building coming up. It's not quite as tall. And what's wrong with 30 stories? We have several buildings on Singer Island that's taller than 30 stories. So 30 stories just sets an example. It's a premier building. It's just not an average building. Maybe some of the people on Singer Island that I've talked to in the past that voted not to have taller buildings on Singer Island regret that now. And I've probably talked to about 20 of them. They wish they would have done more on Singer Island to attract businesses. That happened years ago. And under that administration, we didn't do any development. Now it's time for our council to set a great standard, and this is that. This is a standard that's superior. And it's just time for us to move forward. What's wrong with 30 stories? Why not set a wonderful example? Thank you so much.
Mr. Evans, do you want to reply to this?
Yes. In order to apply for all of the next steps that are in front of this project, which includes review by Development Services, Planning and Zoning Board, and City Council, including zoning and text amendment changes, amongst a few others, in order for them to start that process, they first have to have control of the development site. So this agreement allows them to proceed and make the submittal and application to the city for their project. And of course, the final outcome of the project, which would be the final site plan that City Council elects to approve, would then get attached to this agreement. And I will say that the fee for the provision of the property to the developer is much more than $500. It's construction of 151 public parking spaces, which will have a substantial cost to the developer of well over $4 million. So it's a large cost to the developer, and the city would gain those public parking spaces that are much needed in the area.
Thank you. So to be clear, the only thing we're voting on tonight is the provision of this piece of property so that the process can begin. The process of going in front of planning and zoning, the process of getting everything approved. This is simply to allow them to have site control so they can begin that now. If something happens with this project, if it doesn't get off the ground, if it's then the land reverts back to the city.
In fact, it remains ours until they've gone through
Right.
that process.
So it's not really even giving it up. It's allowing them to move forward, as I understand it. Am I right? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions by council?
Is there any incentive for expediting the permitting process for parking so that they can complete it earlier?
The city has indicated that they would expedite it. This project has a number of things that have to be reviewed by staff. So that they would have to review it concurrently. And part of the way that they can expedite it is when you have zoning changes and land use changes and site plan applications, you can allow the developer to submit all of them at once and begin concurrent review. So you're not requiring, some processes have to follow each other, but you can do the review of those steps at the same time. And I believe the developer and the city have agreed to review all of those.
Anything else, Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Evans, for clarity, the ownership of the property will not be transferred until they've received permitting rights, which we're giving them up to 2 years based on this resolution.
Yes, that's correct.
And we won't Michael Haygood, we won't transfer the property until they actually get a construction. We will close on the property at the same time they could close their construction loan.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't even transfer title until then.
Anything else?
No, Madam Chair?
And it's a given that we will have public hearings on Singer Island and on the mainland, that we will have charrettes so that the community understands this project and can weigh in on it. I mean, those are components of the process, correct?
Yes, there would be at least 5 to 6 public meetings on this project.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick question for any of the representatives from the Valari Group. Do they have controlling ownership of all the parcels needed for this hotel?
Do you know that, Mr. Evans? Do they have site
I'll
control
allow the
over
developer
the
to answer.
other? Yeah, thank you, Keith.
Keith Weinstein on behalf of Baxter and Valari Group. We have all parcels in negotiations or contract at this point. So everything is there that's supposed to be there to move forward. We may look at some additional properties and expand and come back with some future projects down the road, but that's down the road. It's very nice to know that you paid $800,000 for those 2 lots, and for parking of handful of spots and 5,000 square feet, you're going to end up with 151 as a minimum of new parking spots.
Sorry, quick question. Just wanted to continue
Sure.
and follow up with that. In regards to the ownership that I was asking, you said that you're in negotiations or that you're in contract.
Correct.
So you don't have controlling power of all the property that you need to
We
know.
have controlling power of all the properties. We don't own all the properties. We won't close on the properties until we do a simultaneous closing that's tied to the construction loan, plans, bids, permits. So right now, when you vote tonight, if you approve this, that allows us to go spend about $3 million in architectural and engineering as preliminary architectural and engineering. So that's on us. That's not public dollars being spent, that's private dollars, just to get to the point to come back to all the departments, move through all their approval process as fast as the city can move, will move. It's a tremendous amount of investment on our part, as well as the carrying costs for existing properties that are there.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, once we have our final approvals, we'll be running tandem tracks on everything, from approvals with the city, our architectural engineering, final plans, the final construction drawings, the bid or the permit process and approvals for those, and closing of the construction loan, which would then, at the same time we do that, we'll close on all the properties, and then that would trigger the simultaneous closing of the CRA ground.
So we have contracts executed for all the properties, because in negotiations versus contracts, as in tonight's resolution, we'll be issuing you the ability to close on this property as long as permits are cleared. So I just want to make sure I'm clear with negotiations versus contracts executed.
My understanding that we have everything wrapped up.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Your understanding meaning that you have contracts on all the property to secure this hotel?
Well,
Secure what?
they can't apply for the permits. They can't even get zoning requests without showing they have what they call project
Site
control.
control.
I agree. So as of right now, my question is, do they have ownership of all the land that's necessary to develop this property?
Again, there's a confusion in your question.
Okay.
You're asking, do we have ownership?
Yes.
No, we did not buy all the properties.
Okay.
Do we control and have the properties site control? Yes.
So I guess the confusion came when you told me you were negotiating, because that doesn't mean that you have ownership.
We may buy additional properties that are outside of these boundaries for future expansion projects.
Understood.
I wanted to be transparent.
Absolutely. That's
with you.
we definitely need transparency so we can know if this project's going to go forward, because we don't want our land sitting there for 2 years and ownership is not obtained and negotiations fail based upon us not being able to secure all of the land. So I just want to make sure we have clarity when it comes to what is going to be done with developing this project.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And lastly, just to wrap that up, the $800,000 rolls into $6 million of parking and then carrying costs for 99 years in a project that's nearly $200 million, and hundreds of jobs are being created for a very long period of time, as well as a tourism spinoff and multiplier effect for the entire community, not just this area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Motion carries. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the execution of an agreement for sale and purchase with the City of Riviera Beach for property located at East 28th Street, as is more specifically described in the agreement, a purchase price of $60,000 plus applicable closing costs, directing and authorizing the chairman and executive director to take such actions as shall be necessary and consistent to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, this item is to acquire a property from the City of Riviera Beach. They have a lot which is located on 28th Street. And the process would be that if you elect to approve this item tonight, is 2 steps. One would be that the CRA board approves the purchasing of the property. And then the second step, before that could happen, would be that the city council would be required to approve the sale of the property. So our project manager, Andre Lewis, has a presentation for the board.
Thank you. Good evening again, Commissioners. Okay, so a little bit of background. So November 2018, the agency purchased the building located on the corner of Blue Heron and Broadway for the purposes of redevelopment. The redevelopment of this building calls for retail spaces on the ground floor and office spaces on the second floor. The proposed redevelopment is lacking. We don't have sufficient parking, and that is the purpose of the purchase. So the current conditions, the site is located on East 28th Street, just 1 block north of the CRA-owned building. The property is currently vacant. It's a vacant lot. It's less than 1/4 of an acre. The city purchased it back in April of 1994, and the site will serve as off-site parking to provide about 11 additional spaces. So the recommendation, we request approval to acquire the city-owned property for the purchase amount of $60,000 as appraised, and it will, again, will serve as complimentary parking for this site. Questions?
Nothing? Nothing. Do we have any public comments?
We have one.
Thank you.
Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie Larson, I do my homework. All right, this was purchased, as he said, by the city. It's to give a better location of where it is, right on BB&T Bank. Just north of that is East 27th Street. There's a La Granja restaurant there. It's a little lot right behind that. It's sandwiched between La Granja and a little maybe fourplex or something apartment building. That's where it is. That property is often ill-maintained or not maintained at all. I've asked before who that property belongs to. In the last council, I said, doesn't that belong to the city? And I got a big shaking no of the head, said, no, the city doesn't own it. Yes, the city does own it. Now, it would, if you bought, it's valued now at $40,000. CRA is suggesting we buy it at $60,000. We always pay more than what it is. We're buying it from the city. It's only going to provide 11 parking spots. So it's not much, but why are we interested now in buying it now from the city? I mean, if the city owns it, they'll give it to us or they'll do whatever. I don't understand why we're buying it. And we also have to figure out what's going to go in that building, the BB&T building. It was presented to us first as a building with a lot of offices in it. It was a BB&T. It was many, many banks over the years. So it's cut up into little bitty sections. We were told, first of all, that we would be able to pull in all our outsourced rent into that building. We wouldn't have to pay everybody and his brother for the space that we're renting all around town. And really, that would make more sense than to put it as an incubator business. As an incubator business, to me, it doesn't make sense because you have all these little businesses, they want brand new businesses, they want to be seen and heard. You won't see them, you won't hear them, you won't even know they're in there. So I don't think that's the way we should go. I think we should go the way it was originally set up, to pull all our staff in there. So it's one entity. It's the city or the CRA staff who are in that building rather than 15 different individuals who have keys to everything. And that you just won't see them in there. You won't see the incubator companies in there. And that's what they need, is exposure. So that's the way it was sold to us. I think we need to go back to that and then figure out what we need to do. Because I never heard it voted on that it would be an incubator business building. And right there in the corner, no. So it was never voted on that we would go that way. I've asked that before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. The proposed use for the building is for a co-working space, which has been one of the very fast-growing and successful commercial uses of buildings across the country. But it would also be utilized for a business incubator through that co-working space, as well as saving us rent monies that we currently provide to other landlords. As the CRA would move our offices there, we would move the Clean and Safe office to the building, and we would also potentially move some city offices to locate in the building also. So it would be a combination of government use and private uses. And we're also looking at adding a cafe to the ground floor, which would provide a new business opportunity in the building.
Other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, I see the appraisal that was done on the lot. That was done in August of last year? August 2019?
Okay.
And that came in at $60,000. So the appraised value is accurate, what we're going to be paying for it, to transfer it over to the CRA. It'll bring ownership to the CRA so we can use that as parking for the CRA office, or is that going to be for the additional vendors the additional businesses we're trying to attract?
We would use the off-site lots for our employees.
For just the employees, good. And, okay. Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Lanier, anything? No, clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Yes.
Commissioner Boto?
Yes.
Motion carries. 11th Street Townhome Project. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
This is an update on the new townhome project that we're looking to proceed. And Anita Jenkins, our Director of Neighborhood Services, has a presentation for the board.
Let me, one second, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, when you do this agenda, this stuff that you put up on the screen here and the stuff that you give us, this should be for the public as well. So when we pull up 11th Street Townhome Project, people can see this way before we get here tonight. So from now on, if you're gonna have a project that you're gonna show us at night, then the public needs to see this way before we get here tonight.
We can endeavor to do that. Occasionally, when it's a project that has other factors related to it, we don't get the presentations like from vendors or from developers well in advance of the meeting, but we will try to do that.
Yeah.
And whenever we get a presentation, we will upload it as soon as we get it. So
please
that
do that, because, if they want, people, you come in here for our votes and you're asking us to deliberate this, but this is also a deliberation for the public as well. So please allow them the opportunity to not have to watch and wait until 7:15 to see what's going to happen with it. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Vice Chair Botel and Commissioners and Mayor. As promised, we want to keep you up to speed on the progress of our proposed townhouse project on 11th Street. We're bringing this to you and just to remind you that the photo that you're seeing is just a prototype of something that may go there for the proposed townhouse project, which is located on 11th Street between Wright Street and Avenue E to the east. The agency is partnered with Riviera Beach CDC to create and expand homeownership for our residents, and we think that this is a premier example of how we might be able to do that. The agency currently has, and I'm going to try and use this.
I saw it.
Okay. I'm still not seeing it. Okay, so I'll try the cursor.
Yeah.
The agency currently has, site control. That's not going to work. I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty pushing these buttons. Okay. Of the property to the east, Viking owns the property right here, and the CDC controls this parcel here. We propose the following just to remind you of what we brought to you a couple of months ago, that we construct 6 to 8 townhomes for sale. Our target price would be around $195,000. It's ideal for workforce. The program would include some down payment assistance available to qualified buyers. We would entertain affirmative marketing to bring in homeowners with preference for Riviera Beach Home Buyers Club members. We would require them or offer to them a product that would have 3 2.5 and 2 2.5. And it would be an attractively designed project that would be competitive anywhere. Energy efficient materials would be used, and we would look for construction financing to assist us with this project. We commit to developing a homeowners association for the homes there, and we're estimating that they'd be between 11 and 1,300 square feet. The City Council has already approved the abandonment of the public right-of-way at Old East 13th Street, which was a condition precedent to the land swap previously agreed to between Viking and the agency. And that is important because in that land swap agreement, there is one parcel to the west of Broadway that is suitable for infill development. And as I pointed out previously, we'd include it in the townhouse development. This townhouse concept would be successful if we could include that infill property in an effort to assemble a contiguous and suitable tract for development. The CDC has procured a real estate and development assistant to assist with pre-development. That person is going to help us to procure architectural and engineering professionals, surveyor, appraiser, and we propose to move ahead swiftly with this effort. We are currently preparing to request Phase 1 environmental reports to make sure that the land is buildable and that there is nothing adverse on the site. Here is a proposed timeline of activities. For this month and next, we would engage the A&E team. We would do our preliminary marketing kickoff starting tomorrow night at our homeownership rodeo at the marina. In March and April, we would have conceptual drawings prepared. March and April, the phase one will be completed. In the next month or two, the community stakeholder meetings would happen because we promised the community that we would share design concepts and receive input, as well as bringing concepts to you all for input. April and May, we would seek pre-development financing and move into underwriting on that. July and August, we intend to have preliminary site plan approval. August and September, construction drawings complete. In October, we would be in underwriting for our construction financing. Also in October, we'd make an application for permit. In November, we anticipate final site plan approval. And then in December, we look forward to construction beginning on the site. So with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
No, I like this idea, and I like the fact that it's moving rather quickly in terms of making it happen. I don't have any questions thus far about it.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, the target price I see is $195. Are we looking to utilize any SHIP funding or any grants to assist with the down payment assistance?
Everything we can put on the table. The typical or an average construction price for a unit of that size is running about $225, $235, and we'd have to subsidize the project. We know what our market is in this area, and we have to be able to deliver something to market that our residents can buy. So definitely yes.
To sustain the values of the properties there, would we prefer to list them at market rate and then utilize SHIP funding and grant funding to lower the pricing?
They would be. Whatever the appraised value is, that would be our sales price. And then the units would be subsidized to make them
Our target
affordable.
price right now at $195, is that after the subsidy?
That's after subsidy. And because we don't have enough market information and we've not gotten cost estimates, it's hard to pinpoint, but we're just, we have a hopeful price range in price that the buyers would pay.
Okay, because I don't know what the market's going to be at the end of the year, but right now, 1,300 square foot townhouses are priced anywhere between $235 to $265 in the community for 2 and 3 bedrooms. So, with the subsidy of $40,000 to $60,000, I would try to even see if we can get it a little bit lower to see how much subsidy we can provide for our residents, so we can really have some affordable workforce housing, in addition to still keeping the values of those properties high.
We will definitely be looking for every source that we can bring to the table. So any ideas you have, any donations you can make, we'll take them.
I don't know about donations, but I'll connect with you, all ideas, okay?
Yes, and we invite you all out. I don't know if you caught it, but we're having a homeownership rodeo.
Yes.
So some of our potential buyers who've gone through the process in classes, a number of whom are city employees, current residents, will come out. So wear your best cowboy gear and come out and eat some cowboy food tomorrow night.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry? Okay, we're having a homeownership rodeo tomorrow night, and the kickoff for the Home Buyers Club is February 28th. So before we post this, we will correct it.
How many do we have in the Home Buyers Club?
How many? We just graduated in the last class, approximately 30 people. In the last year and a half, we've graduated over 100.
And how many of those attain houses?
So far, we have 4 people in closing right now. We closed about 3 last year, but none of them are buying houses that we've completed construction on. We found other houses within the city.
Good job.
One person is actually buying a house in West Palm Beach.
One more question. Are you finished? Are there any other properties that the CRA or the city can partner with to replicate this?
Oh, yes. And we're having conversations, Mr. Evans and staff, we're having very vigorous discussions, most definitely.
This would be a nice replication for that property we were discussing in regards to the housing authority. Property we were going back and forth with, off of off of Broadway. That
Yes.
would be the type of housing that could work there for that, kind of money and that, type of value.
Yes. So we're looking for opportunities. Land is very expensive, and being able to put more units on smaller pieces is very desirable. Everybody wants a single-family plot, but it's just not always possible. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
The Marina Village Phase 2 Board Member Joint Work Team appointment.
Mr. Evans?
At the CRA meeting in January, the board requested to add this as an agenda item to tonight's meeting. The proposal would be to select one member of the CRA board to sit on the joint work team. The joint work team is currently in its due diligence period as approved at the City Council workshop. So we are in the process of completing the RFP, which will select a financial advisor who will review the developer's proposals. So the new member who would be selected would be a part of finalizing that RFP, issuing it, selecting, of course, and then once we proceed into the detailed negotiations, they would join the joint work team for those negotiations.
Do we have any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I guess we can have discussion. I don't mind volunteering to do that. I seem to have more time on my hands than I know what to do with anymore, and they say work is healthy, so I would be happy to assist in that way. Any other comments?
I nominate Ms. Botel for that appointment.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson, any comments?
No comments.
There you go. Do you need a vote on that?
I think, yeah, we can vote. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel.
yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. That was quick. RFP for event center space?
We took that off.
Oh, I thought you took off the oh, sorry. I thought you took off the last one. You took off the RFP. Yes, you did, you're right. So we have discussion of contract for the CRA beautification.
Yes, we don't have anything on this item, Madam Chair.
Okay. So, comments by the council? Mr.
Madam Chair, public comment?
Oh, public comment, sorry. Bonnie, did you put in a public comment card?
Talk about
No? Of course you did.
Margaret Shepard, followed by Bonnie Larson and Anthony Williams.
While Ms. Shepherd is coming forward, I want to just say it's good to have her back with us.
My name is Margaret Shepard, and I do live in the great city of Riviera Beach. I am so glad to be back home and to see you also, Vice Chair. And to the public, I thank you for all the cards, the letters, the wonderful dishes coming to see about me. It made me feel very, very special, and I thank you publicly for that. I'm here today, since I've been ill, I've had a couple of chances to roam around, and I was over at the Willie Bow Garden, and I just want to invite the public to know there's a jewel over there. The cabbage is about yay big, the green and the red, the broccoli. I got some green tomatoes, made me some good fried green tomatoes and hot water cornbread, and I'm telling you, it's just a jewel to have that particular different vegetables over there being mandated by our own master gardener, Mr. Christopher McCullough. Since I've been back, I've just enjoyed his company. And you're talking about lessons in about 3-4 minutes, he is the guy. So I want to invite the public, don't let that property go to waste. I always ask Gwen, I said, do he know everything's over there? Do he know the sign? And she said, yes, he's very much aware of what's going on at the Lindsay Davis Center. So I'm asking you all, please come out, help the seniors with that garden. If you don't do nothing but come out and pick some vegetables, I hate to see them go to waste. And I took the cabbage in the other day, and the seniors, I tell you, they just fought over it. And I tried to explain, if you all get in a group and cut it in half, take it to your neighbors, meet new people, and tell them about their garden. So without ado, I want to thank Chris again. He's fabulous, fabulous young man. He was voted the Ambassador of the Year, and I never seen him smile so much that particular day. And of course, I can't talk no more about Nehemiah Spence. I thank him for calling and keeping up with me, and our group talking about the smart water. If you don't get involved in your city, then you will have complaints. But if you get in with the city, get in with what's going on, I want to tell you there is a joy. And I'm like you, Madam Vice Chair, I have desire to work. When I get out and work, I don't feel anything. In fact, just talking about my city makes me feel extra special. So I thank people for coming over to see me, asking me about different things and how is the city going. And, you know, I like to talk good things. Anything negative, I try to walk away. But please come over to the Lindsay Davis Willie Bowe Garden, and that I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Bonnie Larson, followed by Anthony Williams and Amana Israel.
Of course, I put a card in, Bonnie Larson. I want to go back to that subject again about that project that's being proposed on Singer Island there, the Sands Hotel. That's had a reputation, and we all know what it is, for years and years and years. Now, that's within the code department, and it's within the CRA, so why is it still slum and blighted over there? If this goes through or it doesn't go through, why is that still in that condition? And it's been like that for many, many years. I remember one of the guys we had applying for the job of executive director of the CRA, young man, and he said during his interview process, or one of the times he spoke here, he said, the object of the CRA is to put themselves out of business. If you can't fix this, I'm thinking, if you can't fix a city in 34, 35 years, what are we doing? Why are we still in the CRA? No property on Singer Island should be in the CRA. And that building in particular, and now we're favoring him, we're doing all we can to help him. No, he's put a scourge on this city for years and years and years. I remember my first encounter there. It's always right there. I'll never forget what happened the first time I went over there for business reasons. And also those two spaces which we bought for parking. Now, it doesn't say in here that we hold the title of it. So I still don't understand why we are agreeing to sell it for $500. We spent $823,000 plus the cost of demolition, plus. We made it into a greenscape there with trees. We never plan on doing that for parking, yet we rent right behind there. So we pay out every day for additional parking, where we have these two properties sitting here. No income from these properties, no tax revenue, no nothing. The deal that was struck by our previous CRA director was that someone could even live upstairs from one of those properties for an entire year rent-free. Well, I say rent-free. No money came to Riviera Beach. A person was allowed to live up there. We've had terrible, terrible negotiations for many, many years. I'm running out of time here. Okay. Those signs we were talking about with the Treasure Coast on those two shopping centers there on Blue Heron, Ms. Shirley Lanier, who's going to pay for those? Who's going to pay for those new signs? Is that us? And we pay for installation? And you asked, Mr. Lawson, you asked, why is it Barron signs? Because we always use Barron signs. There's no competition, no nothing. A lady got up here and said that if they built that project on Singer Island, there'd be work for Riviera Beach citizens. Has that ever happened? Yeah, they had the same deal with Catafomo, and some guy came here and said all those work, they don't even speak English. Has that ever held? No, it's not work for Riviera Beach people, and it's only for however long it takes to construct. So let's reconsider. $500, you're selling a property which we spent over $1 million on. That bothers me. Thank you.
Anthony Williams. followed by Aman Israel and Evelyn Harris Clark.
I think Amon might have. Is he here?
Good evening, Chair, Board, Scott. This is an announcement. There's a firefighters orientation that's going to be held at Wells Recreational Center, February the 22nd. It's going to be educating youth and anybody else that's interested in being a firefighter, EMS, medical person. There are many industries that's around the firefighters program other than firefighters and EMS. That's the paramedics. There are other jobs surrounded that. So this is an opportunity for our community to be educated on the firefighters orientation program, the 22nd of February, and that is from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Firefighters normally work about 96 days a year and make about $60,000 to $70,000 a year. Had I knew about that years ago, I might have had another helmet on. Thank you so much.
Did they make a white one?
You know it, Ms. Potter. Got to be white.
Evelyn Harris Clark.
Evelyn Harris Clark, 133 West 11th Street. Good evening, elected officials. I just want to preface my comment so you can understand where I'm coming from, that I had a homeless commune living behind my property in a city easement with stolen property. And this morning, a CRA property across the street from my house, we encountered a legal dumper dumping half of a street of asphalt across the street from my house and my property. The proposed CRA Art Streetscapers and Blue Herring Fountain projects are on hold. I hope that is not the decision, and I advocate for their execution and launching. Both projects were designed to drive economic development vitality by enticing companies to locate their base of operation in Riviera Beach. I have listened to a few city council members and residents complain about the investment costs. It appears, in my opinion, they do not have the formal urban planning background. They do not have the expertise to really analyze the short-term and long-term psychological, ecological, and financial return on investment benefits to our city. The goal is to attract business tax revenue and disposable income revenues, period. Beautification projects give notice to investors and visitors that our city cares about itself, its presence, enough to invest in visionary monetary improvements, which wards off crime, criminal interlopers, and reduce city decay. I want my property values to increase. When I bring guests to experience the best in class of tourism destinations, I take them to West Palm Beach, Jupiter, Lake Worth, Delray Beach, and cities in between Fort Lauderdale and Miami, not Riviera Beach. Generational wealth is a great aspiration. However, it is a dream deferred by horrid generational garbage in our neighborhoods. By allowing our city, community, and neighborhood to be trashed by illegal garbage dumping. Many of us do not want to participate in mediocre small aspirations. I dream big, I plan big, and I expect and demand big results. Perfect analogy. If you want a high-paying career, then you spend the money and the tools and resources to command a six-figure income. And I just want to make that clear that we want to see a fountain. I don't care how much it costs. We want to make that a focal point to let people know that we care about our city. I want to be able to take pictures in Riviera Beach. I want to bring my guests to Riviera Beach. So I just want you to think about that, the big picture. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Evans, can I ask the status of that? I'm sorry, can I ask the status of the project?
We'll be moving forward with phase one.
Oh, good, okay, good, thank you. Do we have anything else on the agenda? No. So I will ask commissioners if they have any comments to make. Mr. Lawson.
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
No, Madam Chair.
I want to just remind people that we have a Singer Island Town Hall meeting on Thursday of next week from 6 to 8 p.m. Because of the length of the agenda, we'll be providing a light dinner. I have a Workforce Development Task Force meeting on Monday of next week, and so I invite businesses in the area to attend if they're interested. That will be at 11 o'clock at the Marina Event Center. And our JFK Career Awareness Program is moving along nicely. This month is manufacturing, and I actually have a young woman who's an entrepreneur who I met at J Ministries this past week selling double-sided magnets, and she's going to present to the kids this week. I thought that would be a good thing. And I want to commend the CRA administration and staff for the mural project. It's moving along nicely on Singer Island. The one by the gas station is shaping up beautifully, and thank you. I don't have anything else. Anyone else? Nothing? We're adjourned.